So in today's session, I've never been so excited to have the wind die on me. Why is that? Usually for most wind sports, there's nothing worse than sitting there waiting on the wind. Well, what if there was a kite that could help make wind for you? After a 45-minute drive, I got out to Houston Kiteboarding. The wind ended up dying. And that's where the owner proposed, hey, why don't you try taking out one of these Ram Air kites from Gin Kites? In this case, I rode the Gin Spirit. Stick around to the end of the video and see, do Ram Air kites really allow you to get out in much lighter wind? Is it worth it? All right, so what is a Ram Air kite? It really comes from the world of paragliding or parachuting. They are typically called foil kites. You see them a lot now in the Olympics, where you see these race foilers on huge 17, 18 meter kites. They're very, very long and they're very kind of thin front to back. This makes them super efficient. Overall, the kites are lightweight. They're a lot lighter weight than their leading edge inflatable alternatives. They don't require pumping up. They do have more complicated bridles, and a lot of people are using them for foiling, though you can see some really crazy footage from guys riding fly surfer or ozone kites. These things will really jump high, they'll loft, they'll keep you up in the air for a long time, so you can definitely twin tip on them too. But the key theme here is just getting out in lighter wind. So let's get into the lesson. Todd said it's different enough that you can't just grab one of these and jump out on the water. So he wanted me to do a lesson with an instructor, get comfortable with it. He probably didn't want me destroying one of his expensive kites. So let's go through that lesson. So first, take a look at the launch. The launch is quite different. Since you don't actually have to inflate the kite, you sort of hold it up. You let the cells of this kite inflate with air. And as it catches with air, you start to see it fill in with some structure, and then it'll slowly kind of catch the wind and be ready to go. Next step was body dragging, and all I can say is immediately as soon as I held the kite, I started to grin. Every part of my body is just used to sensing how much wind is there out there, and honestly, the power I was feeling in the kite did not make sense for how much wind I was feeling. It just didn't add up in my brain. The other thing that was weird is you could feel you get depower when you push the bar out. You also can depower if you pull the bar in too much. A little bit of an adjustment to make there. So now let's take a look at the water start. The instructor said the water start here is going to be much more horizontal. So in this case, much more left to right and much less top to down. So with a regular kite, you might swoop that kite down from the top left, so call it like 10, 11 o'clock, down to 2, 3 o'clock. So yeah, the instructor went out, gave me an example, showed me how it was done. And then it was up to me. And honestly, it was pretty easy. I got up on the first try. You just kind of like hang it out to the left, pivot it, let it kind of shoot across the front of you. And it ripped me up out of the water. During the body dragging, I actually lifted myself completely out of the water. So it does take a bit of adjustment to how much power this kite has, even in super low wind. All right, now for the riding itself. At this point, I'm just grinning and smiling ear to ear. Nothing makes sense. I don't feel any wind. I don't understand how I'm riding, but I'm cruising. Every part of my instinct is telling me, hey, there's no wind, so you better start signing that kite and moving that kite to generate power on your own. And the instructor's in the background, he's yelling, stop signing, stop signing. Just park that kite, find the sweet spot, let it pick up power. And it just worked, right? So I finally kind of turned that part of my brain off. I stopped moving the kite as much. I found a good power spot. I parked it there. And as I picked up speed, I could just feel kind of more and more and more power than I expected, right? So what's the verdict on this thing? I basically was able to get out and ride in around 15 miles per hour. I am 235 pounds, and typically in 15, 16 miles per hour, I'd have a really hard time with a 15-meter kite. Not to mention, I was not on a light wind board. I was on a 145-centimeter board. So with a 15-meter kite and a 145-centimeter board, I would have really been working to be able to stay upwind and ride in these conditions. So I think that's a huge benefit, given that I was flying a 12-meter Ram Air Kite. So I would say this kite basically made it feel like there was 3, 4, maybe even 5 miles an hour more wind than there really was at that particular moment. So if you're comparing this to other gear that helps you get out on the water, I'd say it's probably not quite as impactful as moving to a foil, a hydrofoil. If you want to get out in the lightest winds possible, you definitely need a hydrofoil. But I haven't found anything else that adds as much low end as a hydrofoil. I think Ram Air kites are something that could be second to the hydrofoil in your quiver in terms of adding 3, 4, 5 miles an hour to your low end. If you just want to get out and ride as much as possible, I think you should strongly be considering this. So after the session, I caught up with Todd. Here's some updates from him on what they've been doing with the Houston Kiteboarding Club.
My name is Todd Jones. I'm owner and operator of HKC, Texas Kiteboard School. We're now going on our 4th year, July 4th. One of the big changes I've done over the last 6 months is we're going to the Gin foil kites. For 2 years, Captain Kirk's in Long Beach was trying to get me to try them. Every time I went out there, they're like, try this kite, try this kite. And the myth was, if you put the kite in the water, you're done. You're walking in, you can't get it back up. Well, that's a lie. You can get it back up much easier than an LAI kite. They are so amazing how good they handle. I've been out on my foil. I stopped and took a 10-minute phone call while the kite was floating in the water, put the phone back in my pouch, popped the kite up, and finished riding.
So a video about Ram Air kites wouldn't be complete without talking about the downsides of these kites. First, they're more complicated. There's a lot of lines in the bridle, which means you need to pay a little bit more attention when setting up and packing down, just to make sure you don't get things tangled. Next, they don't work as well in the water. From this footage here in the lesson, the instructor just completely crashed the kite, let it fall into the water, let it get as wet as possible, and it relaunched no problem. So clearly they're getting better, and they won't fly as well in the rain. So if you're out and it gets wet, the performance is going to drop and it's going to give you some trouble. And then last but not least, they don't work as well because they don't have as much structure when it comes to very gusty conditions. So yeah, there are some trade-offs here. I think they're going to be worth it for most people who just want to get out on the water more. So no video of mine would be complete without some sort of mishap. After the Ram Air Kite foil session, I went out with the instructor on foils. I wasn't able to ride the kite on my foil, but I did take my 11-meter UFO. I'm 235 pounds. The instructor is about 245, so he was heavier than me. I was on an 11-meter UFO, and he was on an 8-meter Gin Spirit. So yet again, it just shows the flexibility and the low wind capabilities of a kite like this. And you can see he's just cruising along, keeping up with me, no problem. Now, here's where the mishap happened. We get way out on the bay. Obviously, the wind completely dies. I was super impressed with how the UFO performed. It stayed up way longer than all of the leading edge inflatable kites. But the Gin Spirit literally never fell out of the water. So here's that reminder. No matter how long you've been kiting, you still can get that walk of shame, or in this case, swim of shame. We ended up with like a good 20, 30-minute walk back into the bay. My kite, by the end, completely fell out of the sky, and I just had to carry it in. And then to kind of wrap up the session, the wind pulled a 180. It kicked up to like 40 miles an hour. All of the kites on shore blew into the water. We got a huge unexpected storm. At that point, I just kind of called it a day and took off. Cool. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on foil kites, in particular the Gin Spirit. I think it is a really important light wind weapon to be considered. I'm not going to run out and get one right away because I just got some UFOs and I want to feel those out and feel how they fly in lighter winds. But I'm very, very curious long-term about what it would look like to add a foil kite to my lineup. So for those of you interested, hopefully you found this useful. If you've got any questions, throw them in the comments down below. And as usual, thanks for watching.